Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Coping Together. My name is Alan, and I am the program manager for the Connections program at the Mental Health Association of Central Florida. Today, I'm really happy to welcome my guest, Marnita, from Pasadena Villa, and we're here today to discuss art therapy. So, Marnita, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, good morning, everyone. Hello. As Alan said, my name is Marnita Patton. I am an art therapist, and I have also some certifications in cognitive behavior therapy and group therapy, and also as a certified dementia professional.
Awesome. Yeah, so we have some wonderful questions that we've prepared beforehand today. So I think we can kind of just jump into the most general one, which I think would be what is art therapy and how do we utilize
Mhm.
it in treatment?
Absolutely. Art therapy is an integrative mental health and human services profession that can enrich the lives of individuals, families, community through the active art making process, through creative process and applied psychological theory. And I would say that art therapy engages the mind, body, and spirit in ways that are very distinct from verbal therapy. So the act of using materials, media, is kinesthetic and it's sensory and perceptual and symbolic. And what that allows is a way to circumvent limitations of language and really empower individuals.
So it sounds like a lot of like healing kind of through creativity to a certain extent and utilizing media and other forms to kind of, help with that type of healing, like I mentioned.
Absolutely. I think there's so much there when we get the body involved. It allows us to really heal, perhaps in a better way, because we're in our bodies and we're experiencing emotion within our body. So to be able to have a format where we can really utilize our hands and become involved and move the process, I believe helps a lot. And it really empowers an individual in terms of finding an expression that might allow them then to get the words for what they're experiencing.
Oh, got it, got it.
Mhm.
And as an art therapist, what kind of training do
Mm.
practitioners require, or certifications do they need to become an art
Right.
therapist?
Mhm. Well, as an art therapist, you would be a master level clinician, and our training is strong in art, of course, and also in psychology. So we're going to know about creative process, we're going to know about psychological development, we're going to know about family systems, assessment, research, all of that is part of it. And when someone goes through their master's program and they're completed with that, they'll continue to work until they have accrued enough hours to become a registered art therapist. And we also have a certification that's available. Certain states do have licensure. So my suggestion would be if someone were to be interested in art therapy, either as a profession or in finding someone to work with, the American Art Therapy Association is a great spot to go to online. And AATA is going to have everything on there from accredited programs to individuals that you might contact in order to have therapeutic services. Mhm.
Awesome. I do have a follow-up question. So when one person kind of thinks of art therapy,
Mhm.
I'm sure there's like a multitude of different ways one would do that. Do you have maybe some examples of maybe the different types of art therapy there is?
Okay, well, that's a great question. So, as far as different types of art therapy, oftentimes in historical context, people have indicated that art is therapeutic in and of itself.
Mhm.
So, art as therapy. And then art in therapy might have particular directives with it, or we're looking at a certain direction we'd like to go that's going to help the client.
Mhm.
So, in terms of that, two basic directions that we can go. And in terms of how it fits in with programming, that's a bigger question.
Mhm.
um, and I could share a little bit of how it looks here where I am.
Mhm.
So one of the main things that I've worked on doing, because we know people are very interested in programs that have a background that's not just experiential, but evidence-based. So what has been important to me in our programming here is to have things that are going to be tied to DBT, dialectical behavior therapy. And since I have a certification in cognitive behavior therapy, that was an easy jump to do, always combining the cognitive with what I am offering. So within our programming here, when I look at DBT, I've broken down 4 main components that I do offer here. And they are interpersonal effectiveness, emotional regulation, distress tolerance, and core mindfulness. What's wonderful about that is that I can piggyback on what my verbal therapists are doing in their programming and adding another layer, so to speak, where we can review what's being done in there. And then they have a creative project that goes with that, that kind of really hones in on those skills and can oftentimes be an easier way for clients to remember the new skills that they're learning. So those are 4 main components, but I've also broken those down even further, Alan. I enjoy the mindfulness component a lot, and I was doing that before I created the 4 basic components that I just spoke of. And so under that, I may have a mindfulness group that's all focused on slow drawing. And I have a mindful mandala group and strength-based CBT, positive psychology. All of these are focusing on that mindful component. And to be honest, I even start the day here with what's called a mindful morning walk. So there's typically not art involved in that, but we're already starting the day out with mindfulness. It's so important.
So it sounds like incorporating a lot of different elements from other modes of therapy, like mindfulness is something often used in other types of therapy, but also realizing that art aspect and kind of bringing everything together, being sort of holistic to a certain extent.
Very much so. And another one that works hand in hand with that is ACT, which is acceptance and commitment therapy. And all of that is focused on having more adaptive responses to life. So it fits exactly with what I'm doing. And they use metaphors. So we can do all of that and combine the art with it. So it's phenomenal.
It sounds like there's a lot of really great benefits to art therapy, and also the kind of bleeding into other forms of therapy can become like an all-encompassing sort of thing. But what do you think are some of the benefits of art therapy that maybe differ from the other forms of therapy? And is there anything specific that makes it kind of really different from other forms of therapy, maybe certain benefits they get that you wouldn't with others?
Right. The first distinctive thing certainly is that it's expressive, and it's combining all those things I had mentioned earlier, the sensory component, the perception, the symbolism, which is very different than our verbal therapies. So that right off the bat is the biggest difference. And that beginning can then allow someone to find the words for what they would like to say. But as far as components that we can work on, oh goodness, it's so broad. And I think that's the other reason why I love this area that can combine all the different therapeutic avenues and then add the creativity, because goodness, we can work on self-esteem, we can work on empowerment, we can work on loss and grief, we can work on symptoms. Perhaps an individual is experiencing hallucinations or delusions. It gives them that outlet for that. So it's really so broad and perfect to combine in a variety of ways.
So I heard a lot of like expression is really something that's helped even those with more severe persistent mental illness. That form of expression is really helpful for them.
Very much so. Because again, that's going to get us in our bodies and it's going to allow us to be grounded. And oftentimes what happens in different areas of stress, of trauma, is kind of a numbing and a dissociation. So we really need to be in our bodies and begin making those changes, which requires some awareness of what's going on, so that acceptance. And then as we're moving through, we can have that connection to then diligently working on some coping skills and avenues that can help us get where we want to go goal-wise. So, and I would also say too, when we're talking about how we offer things within the program, we are talking both individually and in a group format.
Yeah.
So many of the things I do here certainly are group oriented. And I enjoy doing groups because I do have that group certification. So I like all kinds of groups. That is a way to capture a lot of people. But we will also work individually. And if I'm doing some individual work, depending on the situation, I can piggyback on things that we've talked about. Maybe we're focusing on more independent skills, or perhaps it's working on attention and being able to attend a little bit longer to an art process. Maybe it's self-esteem, but also trauma, again, is a big area. So that may incorporate some wonderful work that's out by Cornelia Elbrecht, and it's bilateral drawing, which means we're using both hands, and it is a way to self-regulate and to ground, and therefore then be able to move forward past trauma. And there are so many individuals out there that are doing research and coming up with phenomenal work like that can be incorporated as well.
I am curious, maybe for some clients who maybe never saw themselves as an artist or an artistic person coming into it, how do you kind of help them navigate and figure out what form of art is one that fits with them?
Right. So that's a great question. A lot of time, people have not experienced art, since we were like kids, right? So it's so nice to get someone in. If I could just say, hey, give it a chance, come on over, see what we're doing. Because, for example, and I've got something I can hold up in a moment. I tried to grab a couple of things to show you. One of the things I enjoy doing, and it's out there online as well. She has an art therapy background, Amy Miracle. And she does some mindful art activities with slow drawing. I've always been doing slow drawing. It's so important for us to slow down in our busy life. So one of the things I'll do is have somebody come in for slow drawing, because wow, when we slow down, a couple of things happen. The critic leaves, we don't have that hanging on our shoulder. And those that are working in DBT understand that this is looking at some skills called what and how skills, being one mindfully involved in an activity, not allowing that judgment to come in, and being so focused on just this repetition, which is soothing. So that would be one of the things. I would definitely have somebody that's kind of a newbie in the area and not sure they have any skills. It's not about skill. It's about our process. And to show you how simple, I'm not sure if you can maybe kind of see this.
Yes.
Okay, so, and you see there's just small lines on there. So really all we did was a repetition of line. That's available for everybody. And there's so many variations on it that as they're working, it kind of takes place like this. When they come in, I let them know what we'll be doing, but we get settled in and we have a guided meditation. Focusing on body, because we want to take that back to self all the time. Get in our body, get grounded, and have these basic skills. And then we go to our very simple type of movement. And I teach them this is based in nature. It's around us. Now in the art room, we get fancy watercolor paper and we get micron Pigma pens, but I let them know transitioning this out of the room doesn't take anything more than whatever's near you, a pencil, a pen, doesn't have to be anything fancy. And boy, you could just use it on that scrap paper coming in the mail.
Mhm.
You just want the process of slowing down,
Yeah.
grounding yourself, and that repetition. It's so soothing. And I tell people, hey, take 5 minutes or less.
Mhm.
This is how you start to establish an awesome pattern for yourself that's going to help you heal.
Mhm.
And so what happens once when individuals come in and see, wow, this is not like I've got to create something and it's hanging up on the wall, and they understand the process part of it, a lot of times they've come in saying, I don't know anything about art and
Mhm.
I can't do it. They leave saying, I understand this benefit. And actually, they create small areas, even when they go back home, where
Mhm.
they can have their art and have time for this self healing and self care to take place.
Mhm. That's really
And that's a
awesome.
wonderful thing as an art therapist. Here
Yeah.
is something we can take home, right?
Right. That's really awesome. It sounds like a lot of focusing on the healing process of creating art versus like
Mhm.
making like a beautiful Picasso style painting in your house. It's just kind of getting the benefits from what it's like to create versus like just making something like beautiful, masterpiece of artwork.
Yes, it is very much. Now, Alan, I do want to say now part of the program, I will have things that, can incorporate some craft things because we're still talking about
Yeah.
how art can be therapeutic in eye-hand coordination, in
Mhm.
decision making, in problem solving.
Yeah.
So those types of things will be there. But yeah, I do have a really heavy
Yeah.
push on the other forms of therapeutic intervention that I will do, but it's all there. And another thing that's important about our program is that we're based on a social integration model.
Mhm.
And what that means for our individuals here is that focus on getting out in the community to encounter real life situations and practice skills is of high importance. We
Right.
want that success to be there. So sometimes in doing that, we can incorporate things that are right here in our community. So last week, there was a wonderful play at the Shakespeare Theater,
Mhm.
and my Mindful Women's group went to that play. Of course, we had a lot of processing about that play, and there was also art involved in that play.
Mhm.
So it was about loss and grief and mental illness. So one of the follow-up activities that we did was in our mindful mandala group,
Mhm.
and it was something like this. And this represents all the tears that I have not cried. So there are so many different ways that we incorporate things from the community for them as
Yeah.
well.
That is really beautiful. And thank you so much for sharing that. I think that really
Mhm.
kind of expresses just how deep it is and how meaningful
Mhm.
it can be. So I really appreciate
Mhm.
that. For our audience who maybe don't know as much about what services Pasadena Villa provide to the community, I know that our Orlando location has residential service and also like different levels of care. So maybe can you talk a little bit
Mhm.
about Pasadena Villa's like levels of care and then also how art therapy is integrated into each?
Absolutely. So yes, we do have the residential program. And as part of that residential program, art therapy is a daily offering. And as I said, in many different areas. So it's going to connect to those DBT skills that I suggested and all those many other areas. Alan, there are so many beyond what I said. I mean,
Right.
I will incorporate writing, and that activity is, right to heal. I'll incorporate books, so like bibliotherapy being involved in it.
Mhm.
So residential gets all of that, and they get that social integration part as well.
Mhm.
And when individuals are continuing to show steady progress in residential, they can indeed move to our partial hospitalization program.
Mhm.
Art therapy is also available in the PHP program. Some of our main areas in that are going to focus again on those DBT skills and also slow drawing because I know how important that is for that level of care as well. And then as people move on from there, they may be living in their own home or own apartment and come back for like day treatment. And so those are our levels that are very important for individuals.
Awesome. I really appreciate the clarification on services for some of our audience who maybe haven't heard as much about Pasadena,
Mhm.
but I think that is wonderful, and how we kind of
Mhm.
meet them where they're at. If they still require that residential
Right.
service, then there's still art therapy integrated into
Mhm.
that, and it goes throughout their treatment. So I think that's really wonderful.
Yes. Mhm.
Awesome. So something else I wanted to bring up, and this has affected, I believe, pretty much everyone in the world at this point, but I'm sure it's also bled into art therapy as well.
Ah.
COVID is obviously the topic, but since COVID, have you noticed anything when doing art therapy with clients, and any effects that COVID has had on their artwork, or maybe the way that you provide art therapy
Mhm.
to them on your work as well?
Okay. Well, I can't say that I've noticed anything like symbolically that's
Mhm.
changing in their art. But what I do notice is an increase, of course, in anxiety, mostly. So it's that anxiety, that unsureness of what's going to happen. More issues are coming in as well. And so, what I have done since COVID has started
Mhm.
is to actually amp up everything that's mindful oriented. So, we want to have more of that opportunity to stop and slow down. And because that's apparent, what we need is that acceptance, that mindfulness, that get in our body kind of stuff, learning those skills for breathing, for muscle relaxation, which are all a part of the art process as well. Sometimes during this period, I have found it helpful just to insert something that's so basic and tied to what we're already doing in life, which I think is an awesome way to work as well when we're looking at changing some behavioral responses and making sure our attitude is where we want it to be in the morning. So, one of the things that I offer is actually an idea that I got from Tiny Habits book. I believe the author is Foggs, is the last name. And his idea behaviorally is attached to things we do. And I let my clients know, hey, when you get up in the morning, when your feet hit the ground or when you're brushing your teeth, right then we can have that attitude change. And we may say something as simple as, it's going to be a great day. Boy, and if we've had a tough night of sleep or we don't think that's really so, we can change that basic statement to, it's going to be a great day somehow. That changes our attitude. It opens it up that we can be more successful and handle things as they come our way. That's one of the things I've found so important since COVID began, that we have to have that attitude reset in the morning. It's got to be there. And any one of us can do that. We could all start our day that way. And we can activate that thought with a smile. Perfect way.
Yeah, so it sounds like a lot of kind of just each day, and when you wake up, positive affirmations for yourself, and trying to help change
Mhm.
the way that you kind of take on each day, because coming in with a negative mindset would definitely makes the day harder than if you try to be a little bit more positive.
Absolutely. And part of that, so when we go even beyond Pasadena Villa,
Hmm.
all of these kinds of ideas, they're there for us, for you, for me, for everyone, not just someone in treatment. We can do those things. We can take time for some slow, repetitive drawing movements. We can express ourselves in a journal. We can just draw a small circle and use colors and lines and shapes in there for a self expression. We could grab a picture from a magazine and talk about it. So we can provide that for ourselves. So many of these techniques that they're learning, again, the emphasis is on how do we transition this? How do we make this become part of our life in just a small way? Because if we can intersperse those tiny moments of connection, mindfulness, and joyfulness throughout the day, we are well on our way to having a successful day. We are doing self care.
Yeah, I think that's really, really a great way to put that. Self-care is important for everyone. It's
Mhm,
something that we utilize as practitioners to anyone. It's a great way to kind of deal with the things of the day. It's like making sure that you're looking at yourself, whether you're a
mhm,
person suffering or a person who's taking care of others. It's just an important thing to incorporate for everyone. So I think that was really well said.
mhm,
All
mhm.
right. I want to thank you so much for joining me, Marnita. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Well, you are very welcome. And again, my ending that I'm going to add is everybody just pick up something and
Right.
draw. Be creative. It could just be repetitive lines like I showed on that one picture. It's
Mhm,
really the act of focusing on that present moment. You
mhm,
know, yesterday we went on a walk and we found a leaf and we took 5 minutes and studied it,
mhm,
touching it, looking at it, describing it. Those are all things that get us in the moment. So these are available to all of us. So, yes, everybody get involved, make it an awesome day, set yourself up for success. Do those simple attitude changes and those things that are so mindful and so healing for us.
mhm. Well, I have to say, I'm personally inspired to start picking up stuff and doing some creative things myself. So, thank you so much for all your time and discussing your experience and your work
Mhm.
with different clients and art therapy in general. It's been really a wonderful conversation.
Oh,
All the information for Pasadena Villa is going to be included in our comment section and description below. So if you'd like to reach out for them for services for yourself or someone you love, you're welcome to do that. All the information for the Mental Health Association will also be included below. But again, Marnita, thank you so much. It really was a pleasure talking to you.
you're so welcome. Thank you, Alan. You have a wonderful day.
Same to you. Goodbye, everyone.